Welcome back to Hasbro's Hide. Back finally from a few weeks off and just various things, family and different work and travel related things keeping me from making videos. Back at it now, and specifically we're going to jump back in our 300 hammer. We had left it off the first video where we'd done some break-in and some initial load developments and saw great groups of 50 and then really erratic and strange patterns at 100. And what I believed might have been the scope moving. So what you're going to see here in this video is range and some diagnosis after one range trip, going back to the range, changing something else, and then finally figuring out what was going on. And it was what I suspected. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. We'll save a lot of time. We're not going to show the reloading or anything. We're going to straight to the range. We'll do some hand loads on part of that, but then primarily we're going to be shooting all factory Wilson Combat 300 hammer ammo. You will see issues related to this kind of a base, and I'll show it to you in more detail in that video, but it has to do with the way these cam over type quick release bases work and how they do. So we'll talk about it a bit more in the video, but for now, let's go hit the range. We're out in a very, very hot, muggy day, but we're going to shoot our 300 hammer. I'm trying to find out why we had such crazy groups, and I think I figured it out with that scope mount issue. So we'll review that again a little bit, but for now, we're going to go ahead and shoot some hand loads. I've got 20 of these loaded up, this 125 grain Hornady bullet with CFE black, 26 grains in this case, CCI 41 primer. So let's see how it does. We're at 100 yards, and let's see how we do, especially related to pattern or shot spread. You start there in the bottom left. First 4 targets or so will be all hand loads. Interesting, very high. Put another one down there and see how it looks. That's better. Let's see if it repeats now, where we just keep dancing top to bottom. Better. See if it keeps it up. There we go, that's more like it. There is some hope after all. Let's see if it keeps up. It looks like it was in that scope mount. Alright, let's see what our series looks like. 15 standard deviation, 37 extreme spread. So not bad. I mean, better than most factory ammo, but not great. But an average of 23.83, so that's not too bad. Alright, we're not even warm yet, even though it's a balmy 95 out here. We'll go ahead and shoot our second target, the bottom right, right by the camera. Well, the group's not bad, but it shifted up inch or inch and a half, the exact same load. Alright, we've cooled down now, and let's go ahead and try our next 5. Still the CFE black Hornady 125 grain bullet load. Usually shoot 4 groups of this, then we'll shoot our more expensive Wilson Combat ammunition. So we'll shoot the middle left target now. Hey, big dummy, put your brass catcher back on. Well, It's a little better than the last time, and they're grouping. They're just not grouping well. All right, back in from the range, and I want to show you what's still going on. Our groups tightened up, and we'll look at those at the end of the video, but they didn't tighten up enough. I think I still see some movement. I expect far more out of this Wilson Combat Barrel than what I'm seeing so far, but they did get better than the first video. Now, the first video, when I got the gun back in, put it in a vise, I could take the scope and just barely feel it move. I mean, it was not much, but you could barely feel it move, whereas just grabbing the gun or grabbing the scope, you couldn't feel it. But once I got it secured in a vise, well, then you could feel this movement. So I tightened these bolts back up, and that's the range video you just saw. You can only tighten these toggle bolts up so much. Let me show you how these things work. So they're a cam bolt system. So this goes into your rail. It's square. You can tighten this nut up a little bit here, and that will allow you to shorten the bolt and increase the tension or decrease the tension when you clamp that over like that. Well, that's what I've done, and I tighten these up. But the problem is when these tighten up, they move to one side. I don't know how you can see that, but there's a little bit of movement there. They tighten up within the rail, but they're not perfectly touching the rail, so they pull against one rail. Then you tighten the other one up, and it actually goes into a slight bind. And so under heavy recoil, there's a bit of a movement that can happen because one was tight and the other one's slightly in a bind. Well, this one releases and the whole thing moves back. How do you know that happens? Well, take a look here and you can see this. There are wear marks. Now, vertical wear marks would be like where you tighten the toggle bolt and it clamps it up. That's fine. These horizontal marks means the scope is moving back and forth. And you can see it in the gun as well here. And if I can get this view here well enough, you can see the top of the Picatinny rail is warm. And so even though I got these just as tight as you can be without breaking these arms, it's still moving. And I don't blame Riton. Their design, in fact, is better and less movement than I've seen out of my Burris Pepper mount with the quick release. But I think I'll never buy the quick release mounts again. They just inherently, with this toggle system like this, one can tighten, one can bind, and then they can loosen and shift a little bit. So off that goes. And what we're going to do instead is put on these primary arm tactical rings. And so these are much more secure. They can't move because we won't have that toggle bolt system in there. So we'll put these on there, and then we're going to head back out to the range and shoot the remainder, there's our thunder, shoot the remainder of our 130 grain Wilson factory ammo. So let me get these on, and I'll see you back at the range. Well, it's started looking promising, and I mean, it's good enough, but it's not, you know, it could be better. Our last row here, last 5. Okay. Aha! You got a jam with our Wilson ammo. You know, looks like it'd be okay to shoot. Just mess the nose up a little bit. Let's give it a whirl. Right after a really good shot, so I guess we'll just have to see how this round does. It probably won't fly so good, but let's find out. Chambered good, that's good. Alright, let's get back in rhythm and do it again. Alright, let's see how this round does. Nose a little boogered up, but see where it goes. Not bad. Maybe we should dent them all. Alright, there we go. That's more like it. So from a factory hunting around, that'll probably be MOA or so. We'll measure it out. But definitely proves mount moving around is our issue. So great news, we can start dialing in ammunition now and make this thing really sing. Barrel's good, apparently. Mounts are now good. We'll check them again, but they're torqued up really tight, especially this lower bolt here. And these are all set to Vortex's 18 inch-pound torque. So good news. We'll go back in and check the targets and see how we did. Welcome back in from the range a second time. This is the target where we had the mount where I tightened it up absolutely as much as it can be to where I felt I was going to almost break those levers, tighten them up and camming them over. And it still moved. You saw in the previous segment the polished areas and how much that scope was still moving. So I believe it's inherent to those quick release designs. Like I say, I have a burris pepper, did the same thing no matter how tight you get it. This one did as well, and I think it's slightly better than a burris pepper, but still it'll move under a reasonably heavy recoil that the 300 hammer puts out. Well, this is the result of that being absolutely as tight as can be. And there's times it was grouping pretty well, but then would throw one up, grouping pretty well and throw one up. Here, not too bad. Here, this is the first shot, so maybe the barrel's a little cold, I don't know. Here, grouping really well, but then threw one up. And so I still think the scope was moving. When I got back into the bench, you saw the evidence that the mount was still moving around. We did get one group here that looked pretty reasonable. I had some hope in that. Until I saw what was going on. This is about 1.29 inch group, and so better, but not good enough. So let me switch the target out, and I'll show you what else we did. All right, so what this target is I switched to normal scope mounts, heavy-duty scope rings from Primary Arms, and put them on and got rid of the quick release system altogether. So when I did that, then the group started getting better. Now these are just cider rounds because, obviously the scope and aim and all change when you take it off one mount and move it again. So I got it in there pretty good. Got it in closer, did another adjustment here, and there's 3 here and 2 here. So I'm still wondering, am I moving a little bit? Well, I just kept working at it, and then 4 here and 1 here, and I can tell you for sure that one was me. I hate to blame other factors, but I know I jerked over on this one. And so encouraging, right? So it's getting better and better. This is just some 6.5 Creedmoor practice I did later on this target, since I had that target open, so you can ignore that. But then this is the final one of the groups using factory ammo. This all 130 grain, 300 ammo from Wilson Combat. And that shot really, really well. And so in general, my hand loads, I think before were shooting more consistently and as good or slightly smaller groups than this 130. So I think we have a lot of room to improve. The Wilson Combat ammo, though, I tell you, is really good. The worst standard deviation I got of shooting their ammo was about a 13.4, I believe, was the value there. And so that's pretty good. For factory ammo, that's really good. We'll get it better, but that's pretty good. But anyway, this group size, right? 0.891 MOA, or about 0.933 inches. That's good enough. For a hunting rifle, that's good enough. Now, we're going to get better. I'm confident we're going to get better groups than that. But with ammo, you can just go buy off the shelf from Wilson Combat, made for hunting. This is the 130 grain soft point ammo, and it, what do they call it? They call it the HHC ammo. That's a really good result, right, for a straight up hunting round. It's not a match bullet by any means. And you get sub MOA, again, 0.891 MOA. So I'm really happy. I think that's going to be awesome. We're going to shoot groups like this. I'm very confident with this gun, and maybe even better than that. So the story, ends in the end. It's kind of a parallel to Lord of the Rings, right? It was just a mess. So I figured out what one ring are we going to use, what type to fix this problem. And in the end, nix the quick releases and go with a standard solid mount. Now, whether it's a 1-piece or 2-piece, I had 2-piece because that's what I could get reasonably quick. I would probably rather have a 1-piece, but it wasn't available to me quickly anyway. And the Primary Arms 2-piece I could get very fast. And I set them up carefully, and they're perfectly fine. But for me anyway, quick releases are out. I'll never use them again. And it's just a hard lesson learned. Our Wilson Combat Barrel definitely can deliver. A Wilson Combat Ammo, well, the 130 grain anyway, can definitely deliver. At 125, it still does not like this barrel. But yet my hand loads were 125 grain Hornady bullets, and they shot pretty well. I'm anxious to shoot them now. I got these scopes. I didn't have any loaded, but I'm anxious to shoot them now. I got these scope rings on here because I know they'll shoot much better. So why would 125 grain shoot better than the other? Well, it probably has to do with the bearing surface engaging the rifling. The ogive shape, the angle it goes into from the chamber into the rifling, that could deviate a little bit and distort the bullets. Probably also the amount it obturates, or the amount when you fire it, the back of that bullet swells out. Different designs do that differently and engage the rifling more or less. So it's probably something in the subtle details like that. More than just the size and velocity, because the hand loads they did were very close to the same velocities, and just a different bullet, different powder combination. And so that's most likely what's going on. But anyway, let you like this. I'm really happy. We get good groups. The gun can do it. And now we're going to see what we can do with our reloads.